How's it going, guys? Shizukat's here. Today we'll be taking a look at the last of the Bravely default characters, Agnès the Cleric. Personally, Agnès is a character that I have a lot of history with, at least in COTC. She's the character that I used as my Regen caster in all arenas up until the 7th, and she's been a great help the entire time. As far as the options in her kit go, she has many different types of skills that she can make use of. However, some of them have limitations or conditions that they must meet to reach their maximum potential. This results in Agnès being a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type character, who can fulfill multiple roles in your team. With access to wind and light magic, healing, regen, buffs, debuffs, and even revival, there's a lot to look at when it comes to Agnès. But first, of course, we have to give mention to her voice actress. Ami Koshimizu is a big name in both anime and video games alike. Some of her most notable anime roles are Hollow from Spice and Wolf, Ryuko from Kill la Kill, and Kallen from Code Geass, while in the video game space she voices characters such as Yukiko Amagi from Persona 4, Beidou from Genshin Impact, and Zoe from Granblue Fantasy. Those of you who are more savvy to certain sectors of Western media might have also heard of a show called Ruby, in which she voices Yang Xiaolong in the JP dub. Yeah, she definitely gets around. Now, as far as Agnès goes, her magic and speed stats are fairly high. This is great for a unit that can play flexibly as a damage dealer. While her SP isn't necessarily low, some of her skills having extra hoops to jump through actually makes them have lower SP costs, which means she's not particularly starving for resources and can stick around on the front lines longer to fulfill multiple roles. Let's start with her healing options, as this is in my opinion where she establishes her main role. She has a single target regen, which lasts for 2 to 5 turns based on boost level, and when used with 3 BP, affects the full front row instead of just single target. This is what allows Agnès to take on the role of a regen caster. While she does need 3 BP in order to cast this upon the whole team on turn 1, this can be accomplished by getting her to level 90 and unlocking her extra BP nodes. Unfortunately, this does mean that as a 4.5 star, she's significantly less effective, needing to wait until turn 3 to get regen up on the whole team, since she doesn't have access to either of her +1 BP nodes. Apart from her regen, she also has access to a full front row heal, a simple yet always welcome skill. Notably, she's the only character in the game at the moment that has an extendable full front row regen skill and a full front row heal in the same kit, which can be very helpful in extra hard fights where you would want heals to top you up in the middle of the turn and regen to top you up at the end of the turn. Next, let's take a look at her offensive options. She has a 2-hit win single target, unlocked by default, and a 260 potency light nuke, unlocked at 5 star. Both of these are solid options, allowing her to act as a wind shield breaker or a light nuker. However, she doesn't have the flexibility of being a wind nuker nor light shield breaker, as these are the only abilities that she has for each of these two elements. While I definitely wouldn't consider these her main roles by any means, her ability to flex into these roles if needed can be a great help, even if you already have powerful wind or light units such as Odette. For staff attacks, she has 2 abilities. The first is a 1-hit staff that inflicts 15% magic defense down for 2 turns. This can be useful to stack with other units' magic defense down debuffs, such as Lynette, Viola, or Primrose, and hit the 30% debuff cap. The second is a 2-hit AoE staff, which is extremely useful if you're against multiple enemies weak to staves, as no other unit currently in the game has access to a multi-hit staff AoE. Even disregarding its AoE property, it's still a 2-hit staff multi-hit, which can be useful even against a single target. Next, let's look at some of her other utilities. She can cast a full front row defense up for 2 to 5 turns, which can be very helpful in fights where you want to emphasize physical defense. In particular, I've used this skill to stack with Glossom's full front row attack and defense up in order to reach the 30% cap, while freeing up Glossom's other 2 slots to be used for more offensive purposes. She also has a single ally 15% speed up, which affects the full front row instead if used with 3 BP, just like her regen. This ability I don't see getting used very much, as I'd rather do speed adjustment through equipment when possible, rather than have to use up a skill slot and an action in battle. Also, I would much rather be using my BP on full front row regen casts. Finally, we get to Agnès' most iconic, if not her most controversial skill, which is her Revive, only unlocked at 5 star. Agnès is the first character introduced into COTC to be able to bring back a KO'd ally. Let's go over how it works. First off, this skill can only be used a maximum of 3 times per battle. When you use this skill, the target character will be brought back with 25% to 100% of their maximum HP, depending on how many BP you used. Using 0 BP will bring them back with 25% health, 1 BP will bring them back with 50%, 2 BP for 75, and 3 BP to bring them back at full health. Also, the unit you revive will come back with 0 BP. I'm sure many of you see this as an opportunity to do something that you've never been able to do so far in COTC, which is revive downed characters. While I agree that this can be very helpful, you also have to examine the opportunity cost of running such an ability. Since characters have a limited number of skill slots, bringing revive means that Agnès has to sacrifice one of her other kit assets, many of which are useful for various reasons. Basically, you need to ask yourself 2 questions when deciding whether or not to bring Agnès' revive. How likely am I to actually die in this fight? And how much better off would I be if I had a different skill instead? Something that I've said many times and continue to say to this day is, just don't die and you won't need revive. If you can come up with a strategy that can avoid getting your units KO'd, then you don't need to bring it. That's just my short opinion on the subject though. Next, let's take a look at Agnès' passives, both of which activate upon her getting hit. Her 1-star passive gives her a 30% chance to heal herself for half of the damage taken by that hit, which is really useful. Free healing in the middle of the turn can make the difference between Agnès getting 100 to 0'd or not. Her 3-star passive has a 30% chance to inflict 15% speed down for 2 turns to the enemy that hit Agnès. This isn't something that you plan for, but it can randomly allow you to outspeed enemies and get safe turns that would normally be unsafe if they would otherwise be faster than you. Obviously, the main unit that we would compare Agnès with is Teo, since they're both regen casters. Teo comes with the obvious advantage of being able to cast his regen on the entire front line without needing to consume 3 BP. However, he lacks flexibility outside of that. If the enemy isn't weak to axe or lightning, he kind of just casts his regen and chills. Agnès is a character who can do a lot more in between her max BP casts of AoE regen. She can cast a full party heal if needed. She can contribute to attacking in 2 different elemental types. She can buff team defense or even debuff enemy magic defense. Agnès is a character that is designed to stay in the front row for long periods of time, using the many options in her kit to fulfill whatever role you need in between her regen casts, while using both of her passives to provide additional benefits to both herself and the rest of the team whenever she gets hit. For a character like this, you should consider putting Dragon Scarves on her to keep her SP high and ensure that she has a healthy tenure in your frontline. As far as units to pair with Agnès, I would want a unit that would occasionally swap to the front and then swap back, as opposed to a dedicated attacker that wants to sit in the front for several turns in a row to dish out damage. Utility units like Lynette or Viola are perfect candidates to sit behind Agnès. And of course, you always want to put your best HP regen scarves on that character, since Agnès will never be able to cast regen on them. So should you roll for Agnès? I think that question depends immensely on whether or not you have Teo. If you do have him, there is much less reason to roll for Agnès, since he's a perfectly competent regen caster. However, if you don't have him, you have much more reason to go for Agnès to fulfill your regen caster role. I want to clarify that I don't consider either of them to be strictly stronger than the other, and rather, I consider them to be side grades of one another, so don't feel pressured to favor one over the other. And that concludes my character overview of Agnès. By the way, with the release of Agnès, you guys should finally be able to get those 3 hero seals that you've been missing. The final 3 should be obtained from a memoir involving Idea and Agnès, and now that she's in the game, you should be able to read the memoir and get the last few seals for Elvis's promotion. With this patch, you guys will also get to enjoy Chapter 1 of the Bestower of Fame arc, which takes us back to the Tytos Cathedral in Emberglow, so hopefully you guys are enjoying that as well. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, and until next time, this has been Shizukats. See ya!